Not quite yet.
Okay, you tell me, all right?
All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to PhilProCon. And this session is entitled Fundraising Basics: What Works for Your Organization? And I'm going to have our slides presented right now so we can see a clear view of our panelists' credentials and the agenda for today. So, Miss Joji, feel free to start presenting. But while that's happening, I'd like to introduce myself. I am Loella Rose Cabalona. I'm a senior manager for data and analytics solutions at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois, and I've been an IT professional for over 20 years now, working for Fortune 500 companies. I'm also the founder and creative director and lead singer of a Chicago based Filipino folk fusion band called Sama Sama Project, channeling creative energies from my time in the Philippines as a TV and commercial and musical theater actor with various companies over there, as well as in Singapore. Now, nowadays, I'm most busy with being president of PhilPro, and this topic is very close to my heart because these are some of the things that you struggle with as a startup nonprofit and in the Filipino American community. We don't have that much knowledge, right, in terms of how to tap funds that are actually allocated for by the government, both local as well as federal. And so this topic is really, really important, especially for folks that are working in the nonprofit industry and are volunteering and are building startup nonprofit themselves. So, are going to get right into the meat of the topic, but by giving you the agenda for today. So we will start by introducing our panelists, and we've got three distinguished guests here. And then we'll go to the discussion on the life cycle of sustainable capacity building for nonprofit organizations. We will be giving examples of non-traditional community and online fundraising, as well as also discuss the traditional ways to fund for your organization through one, foundations or corporate social responsibility, CSR, local and state grant writing, that's number two, and third, federal grant writing. Of course, at the end of the session, we will also have some opportunity for Q&A with our experts. So let's bring in our experts right now, and we'll start with our lead presenter, Miss Josephine Joji Rago Adia from Silver Spring. Josephine draws from a well of experience from over 45 years of human service experience, both domestically here in the US as well as in the Philippines. She is co owner of the PJA Global Associates LLC, a consulting firm that specializes in training nonprofit and small business organizations. That she's the founder and board of director of the Partnerships for Sustainable Development Incorporated. It's a 501(c)(3) nonprofit based in New Jersey and Maryland. Currently, she is also the federal program specialist assigned to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. So let's all welcome on stage Miss Joji Rago Adia. Hi, Miss Joji.
Hi, thank you very much, Luella.
Oh, thank you for being here. Let's move on to our next
Mm-hmm.
speaker.
Oh, sorry.
We've got Mr. David Aguilar from New Providence, New Jersey. David is the founder and principal of Community Collaborative Solutions LLC, established to work in partnership with nonprofit organizations, local and national governments in meeting their challenges by offering innovative and cutting edge tools that promote sustainable change, adaptability, efficiency, and cultural competency. He holds a Bachelor's of Science in Philosophy and a Master's in Law from the University of Navarra School of Law in Spain. and a postgraduate degree on nonprofit organization management at Seton Hall University in New Jersey. He draws on over 20 years of experience on national and international nonprofit experience with the United States, Spain, South Africa, Kenya, Uganda, Albania, Philippines, and Indonesia. That's a lot of countries.
All
Let's all
right.
welcome on stage Mr. David Aguilar. Hi, David. Are you there? We just want to make sure that the
Hello.
audio is working fine.
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you for the introduction.
All right, and we'll move on to our last panelist for today, Miss Pearl Almeida from Edison, New Jersey. Pearl currently serves as the Deputy Director of the County Division of Employment and Training, which primary mission is to assist individuals in finding sustainable jobs through direct assistance or by upskilling. She holds a Bachelor's of Arts in political science and a master's degree in public administration from Keene University in New Jersey. She's a member of the Phi Alpha Alpha Honor Society, the American Association of Public Administration, and was outgoing secretary of the Garden State Employment and Training Association. Let's all welcome Pearl Almeida and the rest of our panel.
Thank you, Luella.
Of course. All right. We'll jump right into the topic and I'll turn it over to Miss Josephine for her presentation. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Luella. Good evening, everyone, and good morning to those who are in the Philippines. So, welcome to this session. As Luella has mentioned, our topic for tonight is fundraising basic. Um, and the first one that I would like to discuss is this life cycle of sustainability, capacity building for nonprofit organization. But before I proceed, I would like to have a waiver here. I am a federal employee, as mentioned by Luella in my resume, but I am not representing my government, the government, especially the federal job in this presentation. And the information we are sharing are information generally known to the public and searchable. So feel free to search all the things that we will be discussing tonight. And we are also providing you a reference at the very end of this session. So let's go. Sorry, I will be switching from my paper and from this note. It's like a little challenging. I'm not used to this airmit technology, so bear with us. Okay, so what do we do? What we do? We are a partnership. We are the Partnership for Sustainable Development Incorporated, and just call us PSDI because it's a long name. So we build partnership with eligible nonprofit organizations. We do strategic planning and we provide technical training and technical assistance on organizational management and capacity. And we also develop responsive organizational system, structures, and effective leadership for nonprofits to manage their own organization. And most of all, which is always the question of people when every time we introduce ourselves is, do you write grants? Okay, so tonight we will be sharing with you all the types of fundraising from the easiest one to the hardest one. Okay, so let me move to the next one. So here's what we call the nonprofit building life cycle. So as you know, our main goal is sustainability. So we developed this life cycle just to inform everyone that you know to attain a sustainability of an organization is a long haul, and it goes around, like it moves around, and you have to pass through its of the phases here. So let's say we have the engage, the partnership, and then all throughout here. And because organizations are experiencing those kind of phases. Sometimes when we introduce ourselves to the group, some are already like in the mid range of the organization, some are starting, so it all depends upon where they are. So PSDI is a capacity building organization and provides services based on the needs of the nonprofit organizations and the different levels and types of organizations, from startup to even large human service professionally run organizations. So activities may start anywhere in the life cycle. So as I've mentioned a while ago, you could be in this engagement of the partnership, or some are already here at the middle, right? So and but a small organization normally pass through the life cycle. So even like as a startup, like organizational setup, leadership, organization, and all of that. But as they grow in size, their capacity needs also increase. So, and then why capacity building? So you may ask, why are we doing capacity building? It is an investment for the future of your organization. So if you want an organization bigger than just doing bake sale, you aim for sustainability. And sustainability cannot be achieved overnight. So being responsible for the people that you serve, it also helps you drive your mission, and you do your strategic planning in order for you to take on that mission, that vision mission, to fulfillment of those mission that you have. So one particular need that we have seen in the field is the resource development, or simply called fundraising activities, to support their activities, which is the topic of this topic panel. Most organizations asked us how we can help them raise funds. So for this session, we want to show you an example of the non-traditional and traditional fundraising activities that experience or have done some of the fundraiser that we will share with you today. Okay, so why fundraise? Fundraising is more than fundraising money or funds. It should really be about making your organization sustainable. All right, so most of you will need cash to keep your organization up and running. You need to fundraise to support your charitable efforts and causes. It helps you reach more people, right? So if you have funds, then you're able to serve more people, especially if you're, let's say, you're a social service agency or organization. So you can run a better operation. You can hire people, you can rent an office, and so on, and you can guarantee your organization success for longer than the just current fundraising round. So that's right there, it's your sustainability that we're talking about. Fundraising also raises awareness. It raises awareness on the issues or cause that you are uh, targeting as a nonprofit organization. But it requires you to plan and prioritize. That's why one of the services that we offer is strategic planning. It also requires finding new donors and retention. Not only finding new donors, but you have to retain those donors so they will uh, contribute to your organization every now and then. And then it helps you to constantly be pushed around forward, meaning that you are more inspired because you have more funding. And here's the source for this information. So I put it at the bottom. So here are the examples of community fundraisers. So as you can see here, is this clear enough for you? Can you read? Can you read it? Anyway, so here are some examples of the common fundraising done in communities and schools that you may be familiar with or have done before. So such as Christmas drive. It's almost Thanksgiving, and then the Christmas drive, bake sales, magazine sales, street fairs. So these are very famous. These are very common, especially in schools, in small communities, or in groups like clubs, boys and girls club. And these are good for small groups for simple causes: books for classrooms, student trips, gifts for teachers, for instance, and others. And it does not require a lot of requirements to put up. Raffles are different. it could be highly regulated in different states. So please take note of that. So if you're conducting raffles, you have to get a permission from the state. Okay, so here are the examples of non-traditional fundraising, other non-traditional fundraising, which is mostly like online. So an example is the GoFundMe. I know you are familiar with this because you have seen this online. People are asking for funds for different causes, and it could be for personal and for the nonprofit organization. Network for Good. This is another online platform that is being used and usually is very famous if you are a Facebook user. So you will see this all while in your Facebook popping up, requesting for funds. So Giving Tuesday, this is usually held during the Thanksgiving week. For instance, here in America, this works very well because Americans are very charitable, you know that. So this is very famous during the Thanksgiving. But actually, this is not only being done during the Thanksgiving, it could be year round. It's just titled Giving Tuesday. And organizations using this really synchronize this on a Tuesday time so they can emphasize the need for this fundraising. The other one is employee charitable giving. So if you are an employee of a certain company, most companies have an employee organization, right? So this is another way where organization can raise funds through the employees organization. And a lot of this employee organization focus their giving to their favorite nonprofit organization. So lucky you, if you are a member of this organization, you can focus your fundraiser to your organization. So anyone here at PhilPro, might be able to take advantage of that kind of fundraising. Stock donations, cryptocurrency donation. This is one of the trendy, that I have seen online. You would be so lucky if someone who has a big stocks just donated to PhilPro, right? Cryptocurrency as well. My son is involved in crypto, and he was telling me that, oh, one of my colleagues donated tons of crypto to this organization. Oh, really? So, wow. So that's another option or another means of fundraising. Scholarships actually are offered differently. Like this could be offered by school. So if you're a college student, you take advantage of those scholarships. And also, Filipino organizations are very good in doing fundraiser to provide scholarships, right? And for those who are in research projects, especially those who are taking masters, what do you call this, doctoral, I'll give you an example. The National Institute of Health has a lot of scholarships available to those who would like to do research, especially on health matters, health or medical aspects. And Amazon Smile. If you are a fan of Amazon and you have been buying Amazon products, there is a portion in the corner of Amazon where you can assign an organization of your favorite organization, and you can assign that, and then a portion of your purchase can be donated to your organization. All right. So let's see. All right, so now you're probably very familiar with all these types of fundraiser. This is common in the Filipino community. All right, so we have the cultural, right? Fiesta, dinner dance is very famous among the Filipinos. Okay, most of the organizations that I know always use this dinner dance. Karaoke night. Okay, we are famous. The Filipinos are famous for karaoke night. So I know even the Phil Pro has a karaoke night tonight, right?
That's
Um,
right.
right. And then, of course, comedy. The famous comedy is Jokoy. All right. So, concerts, right? And then walkathon. This is another fundraiser that Filipinos love to do. They exercise at the same time they give people's money. And then awards nights. Oh, this one is another common activity by the Filipino. They would love to be awarded. So they contribute to those awards just to be recognized. But one of the things that I've noticed when you're using this kind of, these are actually called event fundraisers. It seems like, there was a study done by one of the Filipino, I just forgot who did that, but they made a study of this type of fundraiser. It was very time consuming, it is very expensive, the overhead cost is very high, but you generate very little proceed. So think about that. So perhaps, in these days, there are so many platforms that you could use for fundraisers. So you might want to think about that. All right. So let's see. All right. So now we're going to those serious or traditional ways to fund your organization. And this is actually, what do you call this? Traditional ways to fund your organizations are grant related. As your organization become more sustainable, I mean, you have more history, you have more activities, and you have bigger goals. This is where you would land. You will be searching for traditional ways to fund your organization. And um, David Aguilar will be discussing some of the other traditional sources of fundraiser. David?
Great. Thank you, Georgie, for bringing us here. So I'm going to talk about the traditional source, one of the two of the traditional sources of funding or fundraising or raising resources for your organization. So the first one is what we call CSR, or corporate social responsibility. And the next thing that I'm going to talk about is foundations. Okay. So, Jody, let's move on to the next slide. So, CSR, as we all know, that the term CSR, it stands for corporate social responsibility. And and the first question, I guess, is why CSR? Why do companies or corporation um, gives money or gives resources to the community, right? And so one of the main concept of CSR is what we call giving back to the community, making sure that corporations and companies are able to contribute back to the community who supported them. So it is the giving back to the community. Another aspect of CSR is to project a positive image for the corporation that would contribute to the appreciation of the public. And also, it also helps them to market their product, and it gives them an image of being a responsible player in the society, right? So in today's world, socially conscious environment, employees and customers are actually paying attention to the kind of corporation or the kind of company that they would like to support. Even with your, for those of you who have 401k, or for those of you who have 403b here in the United States, and even back there in the Philippines, there are some trend happening now where some fund manager would um, offer stocks, would offer products in the market, where they're promoting companies or corporations that have big that has a big dedication um, to social environment, to social justice, or to other trends that are going on right now. And so, when we talk about social responsibility, this is one way that a nonprofit organization or um, an NGO, as we say it here in the United States, can get um, can get money or can get support or resources for their organization. And so there are three things that are within the corporate social responsibility. One is philanthropic, the other one is activist, and the third one is charitable purposes. And so when we talk about, let's talk about activists first. So a lot of companies right now are focusing their corporate social responsibility or CSR in the environment, for example, right? And so a lot of corporations are trying to be environmental friendly. And so one of the things that they do is they provide support to organizations that have similar affinity of mission with what they're trying to accomplish, and they provide some funding or they provide support to those small organizations that have similarity of mission in terms of being environmentally conscious, right? Another way to look at social responsibility is through their philanthropy or through their philanthropic work. So it is a matter of looking at your nonprofit organization's mission to see if any of your goals would fit into some of the basic theme or some of the basic mission of a corporation that's expressed through their CSR or corporate social responsibility. And then we have charitable purposes where companies would share some of their some of their resources to different organizations that provide social services to different communities. So when we talk about CSR, we have to make sure that what we do as an organization, our mission and goals, we want to make sure that some of those some that our mission are in line with the CSR or the corporate social responsibility of a particular company or a particular corporation if we want to secure funding, if we want to apply or ask for help for our organization to have the resources that we need in order to implement some of the programs that we wanted to do for the community. Next slide, please. So, what is key about corporate social responsibility? And I'm going to touch also about the foundation is what we call relationship. It is all about relationship. So I have a friend who's a grant writer here in New York City, and she said, you know, what's the problem with a lot of organizations right now, especially the the um, the new organizations that are just starting to do their work in the community, is that they spend hours and hours and hours trying to edit a proposal or a grant writing without first establishing a relationship with a potential funder. And it's true in every sense because no corporation, no company will give you money if they don't know you. You have to know them first. They have to know you. You have to establish a relationship with them in order for them to know what you do, in order for them to build trust. And once you build trust, it is when the corporation or the company would say, we like what you're doing. Maybe you could be a good partner with us because you share similar advocacy with our company or corporation. So building trust, building relationship is very important. It's a key part of being a successful applicant for if you wanted to secure funding for CSR. Um, I've just wanted to give you a little bit of a couple of examples about CSR. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Bronner's. Dr. Bronner's is a brand. It's a top-selling brand of organic and fair trade body care in the United States, and they give away 33% of their profits to building, promoting, and advancing positive social change. Right? So that's an example of a CSR. Another one is Lego. If you're familiar with the Lego, the kids that play Legos, right? So Lego has a big CSR also that targets providing opportunity for children to develop lifelong skills. So if your organization has a similar mission, your nonprofit has a similar mission towards helping kids, you might want to take a look at the CSR that's being offered by Lego Foundation. But typically, CSR is mostly concentrated on local CSR. Like when you look around in your community, if you have banks in your community, if you have community banks in our area where I live, there is a good CSR here by Wells Fargo, where they provide assistance to small nonprofit organizations who help small businesses succeed, are small organizations who teach financial literacy, because they know that if these organizations help the community to have financial literacy, it is good for the bank because it would generate wealth and be able to, hoping that they could capture customers, future customers for their banking business. So CSR usually operates in a local setup within a community. I know one organization in the Philippines stationed in Laguna, they were able to get a CSR from Pepsi Cola company. They were not given cash, they weren't given uh, in kind, but they were that organization were given a free office within the Coca-Cola um, compound, so that don't have to pay, that they don't have to pay, this nonprofit don't have to pay rent to have their office. So it comes in a different variety of ways on how you can get CSR. You can get it through cash, in-kind donation, or other resources. Next slide, please. And the last one, that I would like to take a look and discuss is why cultivate relationship with potential funders. It is important because if we have a good relationship with an organization, especially a funder, right, it provides us an understanding of how a program or a grant works. It gives us an inside information about what does the funder really wants us to write, what does the funder really wants us to focus on, and what does the funder really wanted to see happening in the community in terms of change, in terms of helping their constituents. It also enables us to advocate for our cause, right? When we talk about uh, approaching a foundation, right? It is that's it it's hard for, let me rephrase it. It is not simply writing a grant and submitting it to a foundation, right? It is very hard for us, for especially for nonprofits, just to send a cold grant application to a foundation. We need to have a relationship with them first. They need to know us. We need to show that that we can trust, can be trust, where we can be a good partner with the foundation, and that we're able to do the work that we said we're going to do in our proposals. So getting into that relationship with foundation is crucial for us to be able to secure funding through CSR, or through foundation, approaching a foundation. So, and then one of the last thing that I would like to emphasize in terms of cultivating relationship with potential funders is that it enables us to know who exactly within the organization or the corporation who makes the decision, who makes grant decisions, who makes decision on which organization to fund, because it is important for us to know who those decision makers are so that we can advocate for the cause that we're trying to present to our potential funder. Next slide, please. So um, when we talk about foundations this time, um, it is important that, as I mentioned before, similar to CSR, it is important that the mission and the goals of our nonprofit is in alignment with the mission of the foundation, right? If a foundation is dedicated to helping children and your organization is dedicated to doing helping small businesses, there is a mismatch between what your mission is and the mission of the foundation, right? And so it would be very hard for you to win a proposal, a grant through your proposal if there is no alignment of mission and goals. One another thing to consider when approaching a foundation is that mostly foundations would fund organizations that are within their geographic mission. So foundations usually announce in their website and says, we only fund organizations that are within this district or within this province. And so you have to make sure that you're aware of that in terms of applying to specific foundations. Ability to implement programs and evaluate it. This is where a lot of nonprofit organizations are failing. The ability to implement programs and evaluate it. Foundations want to know the impact of your work in the community. If you cannot show that you have an impact in the community that you can measure, then it's most likely you're not going to get it, because no foundation will give you the money and just say, well, we spend it line dancing, helping the seniors to get healthy. And then they're going to ask, okay, so how did you measure health with the seniors that you help? Right? So it is something that we need to think about when we approach foundation. Presence of a strong long-term relationship between foundation and the organization or NGO, as we mentioned before. And the last point that I would like to say is that NGO may need to do a pitch before submitting a proposal. One of the experience that we had is approaching a Chase Bank, and we had the luxury of knowing someone inside Chase Bank in New York City, and they said, come to our office. We want to hear your proposal to see if that's something that we can fund before you even submit an actual grant proposal writing. And so that's some of the foundations would actually do that. They wanted to hear first what you're planning to do, and to gauge if that's something that's within their appetite, something that's within the goals, something that's within their mission that they're trying to accomplish.
Thank you, David. So our next panel speaker is Pearl. So she will be discussing about grant making at the local government. Pearl?
Okay, hi, good evening. I, you know, would like to share with you some of my experiences as somebody who had worked in grants in local government. And okay, before we start with the slide, I would just like to start everybody with the key to being successful in looking for grants at the local government level, whether it's municipal or county, is to do a lot of research. and also to find out what the needs of the community are, so that we can align ourselves with where we want to go, what we need to do. So for example, if our goal is to assist, like children, for example, like strengthening families, then we would like to research, how many organizations in the community are doing that. Because one of the ways of strengthening ourselves, if we're a startup, is to try to collaborate with an organization that's probably already existing, and then also to get some tips from them, and to see, how they run the organization and how they implement their programs. So some of the ways by which we can kind of get ourselves embedded in the process is like trying to see if we can be members of our local advisory boards. So again, that's research. What are the organizations that exist in the community, and who are the board members, and see if we can volunteer to work as part of that board. And then also, if there are many community fairs, that's to increase our visibility as an organization. You need to be present at these community fairs. You need to be present at the forums, summer fairs, fall fairs, these things that they do at the park where, the communities get together. You need to be there and be visible. And also, that's where you meet the local government officials, and where you introduce yourself and you say, hi, we work with this Filipino organization, and we are working with families and children. And so that's how you kind of like introduce yourself. And then you also want to make sure that the issues and the recipients are locally focused, because when you want to ask for money at the local government level, they're very, very concerned, and it's very important to them that their constituents are served for the purpose of, voting reasons. So you need to make sure that, hey, I live at this borough, or at this part of this part of town, the northern part of town or the southern part of town, and this is where we take care of the families, and we do this at a local school. And so that's when when you meet your local government officials at a fair or something, then that's when you introduce yourself, and you get familiar with them. And then also, you want to reach out to your local governments to be on the list of people that are in their distribution for email. So when there's an announcement for example, they're recruiting for, or they do this once a year, for example, that they want to recruit for community organizations that help families, and they do this every January, for example. Then you want to make sure that when that announcement comes out, that you are on the distribution list. So you need to make sure who these people are and how do you get on their lists. Okay, so you need to know what the community needs are, where you want to focus your efforts, be visible, and also, do a lot of research. So that's very key in trying to find some support at the local government level. Next slide, please. Okay, so all right, so these are some of the technical parts of that. um, Again, if you're not in the distribution list, make sure you check your newspapers, because grants at the local government level, they are obliged, or they are supposed to put it in newspapers and on the websites. So you need to check the websites periodically. You need to check the newspapers periodically at the ad section to see what the announcements are. So then also you need to make sure that if there is a technical assistance, once the announcement is said, okay, we're recruiting for programs for Filipino families, or local families that live in the northern area, for example. So then you want to make sure you know when the technical assistance meeting is, because this is where they tell you, oh, I want 5 pages of this. I want this in digital form. I want this, this, and this. So you got to make sure that the request for proposal is very clear to you. You ask your questions at the technical assistance meeting. You comply with whatever the funder is looking for. They want 5 copies, you need to give them 5 copies. They tell you, do you need to be there at 11 o'clock? Then you better be there at 11 o'clock, not a second longer, because when they close that door and they open everything up, you are out of the game. So you need to, we need to be aware of these things. It's very, very legal and complex, but it's pretty friendly if you kind of like just pay attention to what you need to do. Okay, you just can't say, oh, I can give them 4 copies. Oh, no, you can't give them 4 copies. If they say 5, you got to give them 5. So it's very competitive because some of the organizations have been there forever, and they probably get funded periodically. So if you're a newcomer in a block and you want to prove yourself, then it really becomes very challenging for us, especially, as minorities. And, it's very competitive. So we need to make sure that, again, we cross our T's and dot our I's. Okay. And then, so, some of the requirements they want is like you have a history of doing this. Maybe even if you didn't do this in this community, or you did this in a capacity somewhere else, you need to make sure that you kind of like explain that you did this before. You have a robust experience in helping families or helping children, and that you can monitor this, that you track your records, how to do your reports, all that. Where, what, how much the money is being spent, fiscal responsibility. Every penny goes somewhere, and if you're allowed to use it to buy pencils, then by all means you better know, that you bought the pencils and you didn't buy something else. And then that you are stable, you're established, you have experience, you have data. And then of course your organization has all its documents together, because local governments are very, very strict with a lot of documents, like insurance, liabilities, and all that kind of good stuff. So again, if you're kind of like starting up, you may really want to kind of work first with an established organization as a collaborative effort. Even if they are leading it, somebody else is leading it, that's a good way to start yourself to have some form of history. Okay, so basically that's all we have to say. We want to open this forum to Q&A. Thank
Thank
you.
you very much, Pearl. So you have heard how to apply in local government. So that's the spiel. I also work with the local government, so I agree with what she has shared, and it's very competitive. And all you need to know is your relationship. Remember that your relationship with the local officers, I mean, local officials. If only the Filipino community will have a representative in all the counties, then we will be in a better place, right? So it's the politics. All right. So, okay, I have here an organizational prepared checklist, and the reason why I added this is because as your organization is getting ready and you are able to apply to bigger grants, because the local governments usually has a smaller grants compared to the federal, but the way the grants is, building your track record, you will start with the local government, right? And when you are ready and you have enough experience, then you move on to the next level, which is the federal. Because I will tell you that if you apply at the federal, then there are more complex responsibilities, complex requirements. So you have to be very ready. That's why some of the checklists that I put in here, make sure that you have recruited members of the board. not just one single person, because no entity will give you any grant if you are the loan applicant. They will be looking for your board of directors, unless you're applying for a single, like an individual scholarship. But I'm talking about grants. So you have to have articles of incorporation that's given. If you are an incorporated organization, you have to have that, and then you follow it, of course, and then you determine what kind of entity you want. Usually a lot of federal grants are offered to 501c3 nonprofit organizations, so you have to take that. It's worth getting it, because the contributions are tax deductible from donors, as well as this is one basic requirement of the federal and the local government. And of course, you incorporate your organization. And this is one thing that I'm emphasizing: before you do anything, before you even grab or write a plan, you have to have some kind of plan. Okay, what are you looking at? What is your vision? What is your mission? What are your goals? So what are your programs that you would like to apply for these grants? Because you just don't tell the government, oh, we are doing youth development, but what about the youth development? So you have to really like break down all those programs. And of course, you have to have all your registration in place. Like Pearl mentioned, there are so many um, what do you call this, paperwork that you have to have, like liability insurances, all those kind of things. And you have, for a federal grant, especially the bigger ones, you really have to build track record, because one of the score that they will always look or do is the organizational capacity. Okay, they always ask for that. How many years are you in business? How many years are you doing this program? Who is doing this program? Do you have professional staff? Okay, and network, you build partnership. Again, in, as you can see here, it's always partnership. When you raise funds, it always involve partnership. So you raise funds for operation, staffing, and programs. I emphasize your staffing because, especially in the Filipino community, this has been my experience. They think that just being a volunteer organization will be sufficient. No, especially the federal and the government, they would like to have to see or talk to an executive director or a professional staff. So if you're applying for health programs, they will be looking for people who have a background on medical. Okay. You have to develop, implement the programs, and for a smaller organization, you would start with the pilot program, so that when you're ready and you have tested the pilot program, then you're ready to apply for bigger grants. Then of course you apply for grants, and then, well, if you get the grants, you maintain your program integrity. This is another piece that I'm always telling the Filipino group. We have to show program integrity, and we have to comply with all those convoluted laws. I always say that because it's really very complex. And of course, you have to collect and report data. Why? Because you need to evaluate your program. Because at the next round of the funding, they will ask you, like, what happened to your program? What happened to the recipient? Were you able to move these people from poverty or to the next level? So let's just remember that. Okay, so the federal grant actually is what we call the ultimate grant application. If you pass the fundraiser, simple fundraiser, you have experience, you have gone through the local and then the foundation, you are ready to apply for the federal grants. So there are several types of grants that you will see in the announcement, and it's usually like block grants. Block grants are usually given to state, tribes, and territories. So nonprofit is seldom using block grants, unless that block grant allows the nonprofit in their communities to apply. So that's what we call sub grantees. So you have to watch for that, and there are a lot of those. Once the money gets to the state, territories, or tribe, they can subgrant the money to nonprofit organizations. So that is your chance to experience that kind of grant. Discretionary. A lot of the discretionary grants are offered directly to nonprofits. So this is where most of us should be looking into. Cooperative agreements, these are offered to educational institutions, universities. Most federal grants do cooperative agreements for evaluation, for instance, because that's one piece that the government doesn't really want to do, but it's being offered to schools and universities because of their capacity. And the flow of grants. So the money is always coming from the federal, okay? It's authorized by the Congress and the Senate. So if you say, like this time of the year, this is the time of the year when the Senate and the White House and the legislative, what do you call this, government argue, and where all the politicking is happening. And as you can see in the previous years, when they won't agree, then the government gets shut down, and then all these grants are on hold, no one can get the grants, right? So the money gets comes from the federal. So like my office, for instance, we are a grantor, so we send out all this funding like this time of the year to states, territories, and tribes, and that money goes to the state. So once the money gets to the state, they can also subgrant that to the local government or to the nonprofit. So that's how the money flows to the community. So if you want to really apply for grants, you really have to be very diligent and looking where these monies are. Okay, and I have here some key areas that I would like you to look at. Like, applying for federal, you have to have fiscal integrity. Otherwise, you will be barred from applying in any of the federal grant. Okay, your name will be posted somewhere in the federal place and say, this woman Joji is barred from applying for future grants. All right, best practices, this is always being searched by the government. Always look for best practices, so you can do this by piloting, and also um, what do you call this, collecting data and documenting your practices, so you can prove to the government that your program is a best practice. Track record, we've been emphasizing this. Make sure that you have enough track record, good track record, not just simple track record. Okay, data driven, the government wants data, so you have to be ready for that. Then innovative research, especially for those research program or research activities, they would like to have this. Why? Because a lot of this innovative research are, let's say, a good example will be like those, during the pandemic. So we have all this innovative research about the vaccine and all the medicine. That's considered innovative research. And return of investment, this is the key. The government wants the return of investment. We think it's only the business who wants the ROI, right? No, the government is big on return of investment. It's not the money or the profit that the government gets, but it is how you, nonprofit organization, move one person to the next person. So if you serve 100 people who are low income, what is the return of investment being expected from you? You are expected to help these people move to the next level of their income, or what we call the federal poverty level. Move them out from the federal poverty level. That's the kind of return of investment that the government expects from us. All right, so let's see. So you are now ready to register, right? So grants at the federal is always under this link. Okay, all you need to do is get into the grants.gov, and this is a database that you could see all the grants that you want to see, all types of programs. Okay, so an organization is an entity that submits grant application on behalf of the group. So such as the government, they also get here to the grants.gov, nonprofit organization, or even a private business, because like the SBA, right? Small business and all those doing innovative researches. And then once you form a legal entity with, of course, you have to have this EIN that we call, you're ready to complete the steps below. You have to get a DUNS. This is required in order for you to apply for grants at the federal. And there's the number, there is also the site. So you have to register with the SAM. The SAM is like a database for all the grantees. So you can access that before you can even access the grants.gov. You have to register under the SAM because this is where all your information will be deposited. And then now you have to register with the grants.gov. All right. So again, this is just a reminder. Cultivate relationship with your potential funders. Again, relationship. Okay. Don't spend so much days, weeks, or months by meticulously editing your grant, but never make an effort. Make an effort to build a relationship with the people within the funders organization. Okay, so that's where your promotion. That's why most of the organization have a public relation, right? Relation group, because they're supposed to promote their organization to cultivate this relationship. All right, let's see. So we have here the additional resources that you can look into. So for instance, the federal grants, this is the link. The Foundation Center, this is what David discussed. And by the way, this Foundation Center, they have, this is a database, but you have at least to pay. So what I will suggest is in order for you to access those resources, tie up with another organization and, share in with the fees, because the fees I believe is like $300 or something. Okay, the Grantmanship Center. This is a company who provides training on on how to write grants. This I went through this, so I can vouch that they are good. So student aids, local loans and scholarships. So I put in here a link. So if you are a student or if you have student loans, so this is a good link. By the way, this is just student loan forgiveness. So this is issued by the social workers group, the NASW. But just to give you a bit of information, if you go to the any site of the government and you have a student loan and you apply for federal position, remember this, especially for your members, Luella, advertise this because the government is offering student loan forgiveness if you go to public service. Okay, so
Wow, that's really good to know.
oh yeah, I wish I was younger like you because I could have applied for loan forgiveness. Although I don't have a loan forgiveness, but I'm advising my daughter who had a master's degree in social work to really apply at the federal, and so her loan could be forgiven, right? And then the business loan, if you're into small businesses, so this is your link. So there are so many grants as well for businesses, loans, and small business. So, and then here's the link for why fundraise, just in case you are interested in knowing more about the topic that I discussed. And okay, so this is our information. So if you want this PowerPoint, you can email us, and you can also put it in the chat later. And I believe Luella Philpro's group will be sharing this PowerPoint, right? To
Yes, that's
those who are
correct.
present.
Our team is working on gathering all the presentations from the different breakout sessions to make it available on our website for everybody who attended today too.
Okay, great. And of course, feel free to ask us, especially me. I'm a board member. This is just a tip, okay? We provide free consultation, so take advantage of that. And we have 30 minutes to go, and we can answer your question about fundraising, about grant writing, because once you once we develop a program for you, then it will be based on a fee. So, all right, I just want to let you know about that. All right.
Cool. Well,
Yes.
thank you. Thanks, Miss Joji, Pearl, and David. Just wanted to open it up for any questions from the audience that is watching us today. I actually do have a question in mind, and so I'll just
Okay.
throw it out here. This is very interesting presentation, and it's funny that you hit it right. You hit the nail right on the head where it's the non-traditional ways of fundraising that is most popular among Filipino Americans here, and we would
Yes.
really want to move towards the traditional and more like you said, it's really more profitable in a sense. You can actually get more funds out of them. So my question um, is it possible for nonprofits who have not gone through the local route of getting grants to actually get and gain a federal grant?
It's possible. I will tell you this. When way back in 2005, we Pearl and David and myself were involved in one of the organization, and well, because I'm so familiar with the grant writing, right? So I we applied, but this organization actually has been in a business of a different activity. They're involved in parade organization. But so far, I was able to use or leverage their fundraiser that they did, because sometimes grants will be asking like, okay, what is your capability in handling grants, right? So we use that. On top of it, of course, the three of us, Pearl, David, and myself, have various experience. So we promoted that to those federal grants, and I think we got $500,000 from
Wow.
what is the name of that, David? It's Kadka. Is it Kadka, David, or from the SAMSA? I forgot, but it's a federal grant that we got, and we were just. I think we were barely like 2 years as a community development center. So yeah, it's possible, but
That is
we really have,
amazing.
yeah. And that time, we already have some programs. Honestly, grant writing is also an art. So you have to know what you're applying for. You just don't grab a grant just because it for the sake of applying. You have to know what you would like to apply, right? So, for instance, PhilPro is doing youth development. You can develop a concept where this youth development activities that you will be doing can be fundable, and that's what PSDA is teaching, by the way.
Yes, that's
So,
right.
but
You
I
know,
know you have experience doing this as well, right? So, yeah.
yeah, this year, PhilPro is lucky to have received a few grants. These were more COVID related, as you know, there's a lot of funding that is being pumped on COVID awareness, vaccine
Exactly.
awareness, and so those are the things that we actually took on, and luckily actually got to serve the community and bring awareness for that. But another question that I had here is a lot of our organizations are focused on benefiting I guess the less fortunate in the Philippines, right? Like we would
Yes.
actually have
Hmm.
fundraisers here to send to victims of typhoon, or it would go to a local local community in the Philippines that maybe don't have water, and so they're building pumps and things like that. Uh, if the benefit of the fundraiser or the organization is going outside of the country, is this still are the non-traditional ways of fundraising still applicable?
Yes and no. It all depends upon what kind of fundraiser you are applying or using. But this is just a caution. I know a lot of Filipinos are doing that without even reporting. It is important that you coordinate with the Internal Revenue Service. Here's an approach that I'm using under PSDI. We are actually helping one nonprofit organization in the Philippines. It's the Sandiwan Learning Center by Father Bernard. I'm sorry, Father Benigno Beltran. Those Smoky residents in the Smoky Mountain. So we are raising funds for them through the GoFundMe, right? So, but before I publish that application, that fundraiser, We develop a contract with them, and I submit their information to the Internal Revenue Service. You know why? So that when we send the money to the Philippines, the Internal Revenue Service or anyone will not charge PSDI with money laundering. So that's the key. You have to at least, like, especially if you're sending money, a lot of money in the Philippines, you have to do that. You have to make sure that you have at least like some kind of reporting system to the IRS. And I think what we did initially is when we developed and we applied for 501c3, we already included that as one of our strategy. So I built in all those in the 501c3 so that I don't have to go back to the IRS and be questioned later on. So those
And
are
if
some of the
and
key.
if I may add, Georgie,
Mhm.
if I may add, it's not only here in the States that they have to take care of in terms of with the IRS. It's also the destinatory bank account in the Philippines that they also have to make sure that it's closely monitored or actually reported. Um, there's some instances where the bank account is owned by a US citizen who opens a bank account in the Philippines, and that US citizen did not declare it in their FBAR that they do have an account in the Philippines. And so when the transaction happens, IRS knows your transaction, but they're unaware of the existence of that bank account owned by a US citizen. Then that's where the conflict starts
Right.
to show up. And so those connections, you would like to have that really clear between the sender and the destination where the money lands in whichever parts of the Philippines, and then the disbursement process happening in the Philippines also have to be accounted for, because later on they're going to ask you for a report. What happened to that money? Did it land in someone else's pocket, or did it actually happen to be spent into social projects that are in place in the Philippines? So just a little bit
Right.
of caution with that.
Thank you.
And
Thanks, David.
just to add, and I forgot to mention this, there are grants that can reach out to the Philippines, for instance, but you have to really find out which one will they allow. And I can give you an example. So those, and you're aware of this, right? Like the what is the IOM that launched this twinning project with us. So they are developing this disaster preparedness program. So through them, because they have their own offices in the Philippines. So we can course through them those kind of fundraiser, and we can dedicate, let's say we want our region or our province to benefit from that fundraiser. We can course it through that organization because they are legitimate organization that is being recognized in both countries. Gawad Kalinga is a good example. Habitat, what is that? The Habitat
For
housing
humanity.
for humanity, sorry, yeah, those kind of organization who has a relationship or has an office or a presence in the Philippines. That's another way of doing it. And just, you know make sure that when you receive funds from any type of donation, it should always be, what do you call this, name after the legitimate organization. As much as possible, don't name it under an individual. So be wary for those individuals who are asking for contribution, and then they will tell you, okay, just sell it to me or put it in my bank. No, you are not supposed to do that. Because one day the IRS will run after you because you did not pay your tax, right? So
Right.
those are some of the tips that I have known.
Cool. I see some comments on here, and if our admin can actually bring that up to the screen under Q&A, it says very, very informative. And it
No.
says, thank you for this great presentation and the additional resources you provided. Thank you. Thanks, David, Pearl, and Joji. All right, are there any questions from the audience? You can type it up, and I think we can bring that up to the screen if there's any.
I think, yeah, we don't have a lot of questions. So, but probably, they have something in mind. So just, let us know what your questions are.
Yeah, Miss
And
Joji, let's have you kind of say your email again, because I think you're the point of contact for here. If we can actually scroll back to the original slide. So yes, so Miss
so here.
Josephine, you can call or email rather her at PSDI. That's the organization that they are all a part of. PSDI BOD Board of Directors. I'm guessing at gmail dot
Mm-hmm.
com. And then we also have David at collaborativesolutions.com, and Pearl at Pearl PERLE 8627 at AOL.com. Thank you, SDI. I know it takes a little,
It's
but
a mouthful,
partnerships for
right?
sustainable development. But this was truly, truly educational for nonprofits. I'm hoping that folks will actually come on. I know a lot of people were saying, I was seeing it in chat, like I'm torn. There are multiple panels that are happening and so on. And it's
I
like I'm torn
know.
between fundraising and this. So I've seen people come in and out and listen
Mm-hmm.
into parts and then go to other sessions as well. But the nice thing about this is that there is a replay of this that people can watch, and it'll be on until like after the convention is done, the conference is done. We also hope to make it available online too and post it up our page. So thank you. I'm pretty sure this message will go far and wide, and I can't wait till the day where our Filipino nonprofits are actually getting all of these grants for the betterment of our community.
Yes, it's about time. I keep saying the pie is out there. Let's make it happen. We have to have one pie, right? At least like one
Yes,
pie. We're not aiming for the whole pizza pie. We just want one pie.
yes,
Okay?
let's take a piece of that pie. Oh, you know what? Here, there is a question. There you go.
Hmm.
What are the top Filipino organizations that new Filipino org should strive to be like?
Okay, sorry. Say that again.
What what are the top Filipino nonprofit organizations that the new Filipino orgs should strive to be like?
Okay, meaning like what kind of which
I
Filipino
guess
organization, existing Filipino organization that, would strive to be like. There are so many Filipino I'm sorry, organization that are already doing a lot. I can give you a lot of example from the West Coast.
mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm more familiar with the West Coast because I have contacted them. I worked with them some few years ago, especially those in the San Francisco area, San Francisco, Los Angeles. And it all depends upon what kind of programs you want to implement. One example is if you're doing history, the Filipino American History Month organization is very good in doing that. If you're into, let's say, advocacy, NAFA is, of course, number one, right? The National Federation of Filipino Americans. PhilPro, well, how about that, right?
We're
You're,
starting.
yeah, you have 10 years of experience already working with youth development, right? And your immersion program. What else? I've honestly a lot of the examples, we can share with you. And to tell you the truth, okay, this is just an ad lib, but there are 3,000 Filipino organizations across the USA. All right, so we will have to filter down which one are those who are really serious organization, meaning who are providing services. There is one in New York. We were part of it as well, David and myself. It's the Kalusugan Coalition. They're doing research about heart disease, heart blood pressure, high blood pressure, and all those health related, they got a grant from NIH. So we were one of those. I forgot to mention that, but we were part of the pioneer, the founding board that wrote the grant for that, and it's still existing. They are receiving money from the National Institute every year. That's a good example. They are in New York, and
Great.
mhm.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Georgie, Pearl, and David. This has been really helpful. I hope to have more sessions like this that are really educational and benefits our community in a greater means than what we would imagine. Yeah, again, that's a hope for Filipino American nonprofits here. But our time is up. And thank you for your expertise and your opinions here. We are happy to have you at PhilProCon, and we'll hopefully see you in the plenary soon. It's happening right about now.
Mhm.
Oh,
Thank you for having
no,
us,
thank you.
Luella.
Of
Thanks
course,
for
thank
having
you
us,
so much.
Luella. Nice
Yes,
meeting
thank
you.
you,
Good
Nice
to
Luella.
to meet
see
you too.
you.
Thank you.
See you again
Thank you,
All
soon.
right.
David, Pearl. Okay, see you
Okay,
at the
Bye-bye.
bye.
plenary. We'll get there.